what the cold actually felt like, and more stable than the freezing air above. It was a simple idea, but one that transformed survival into something far more sustainable. As thousands of years passed, these solutions became even more sophisticated. Evidence from ancient settlements reveals shelters built with multiple layers, each serving a specific purpose. Animal hides trapped warm air close to the body. Layers of dried grass and moss helped manage moisture before it could freeze. Protective outer coverings blocked harsh winds, while still allowing trapped humidity to escape. Every layer solved a different problem, creating a remarkably effective thermal system. This was not accidental experimentation by desperate people. It was practical engineering, refined across generations. The materials may seem primitive to us today, but the underlying principles remain surprisingly familiar. Modern homes rely on insulation, moisture control, and weather protection. Ice Age humans achieved the same goals using only the resources nature provided. Mammoth bone houses. But underground shelters were only part of the story. As archaeologists continued uncovering Ice Age settlements, they encountered evidence that completely changed how experts viewed prehistoric humans. Scattered across parts of Eastern Europe were the remains of structures so advanced that they looked less like temporary shelters and more like carefully planned homes. Imagine standing before a building constructed almost entirely from mammoth bones. Massive skulls formed stable foundations. Long, curved tusks created strong frameworks capable of supporting enormous weight. Smaller bones were arranged with purpose, strengthening weak points and helping distribute pressure throughout the structure. Over this framework, thick animal hides were stretched and secured, creating a protective barrier against freezing winds and heavy snowfall. Every component served a function. Every design choice solved a problem. What makes these structures even more remarkable is how well they worked. Experimental reconstructions have shown that shelters built using these ancient techniques could maintain temperatures dramatically warmer than the frozen landscape outside, while requiring surprisingly little fuel. In practical terms, these Ice Age builders achieved levels of thermal efficiency that rival some modern cold weather shelters. At that point, it stops looking like simple survival. It starts looking like true architecture. Fire as an operating system. Of course, even the most advanced shelter would have been useless without a reliable source of heat. But for Ice Age humans, fire was far more than a way to stay warm. It was the center of daily life, the technology that made everything else possible. In many ways, it functioned as the foundation of their entire winter survival system. Evidence suggests that heating inside these settlements was carefully organized rather than improvised. Central hearths provided the primary source of warmth, while additional fire areas created different temperature zones for cooking, crafting tools, and caring for vulnerable members of the group. The placement of each activity appears to have been intentional, maximizing both comfort and efficiency. Fuel management was equally sophisticated. In regions where trees were scarce, people adapted by using alternative materials and learning how to make them burn effectively. Fire was treated as a valuable resource that required planning, conservation, and knowledge. Perhaps most impressive was their understanding of airflow. Ancient shelters incorporated ventilation systems that allowed fresh air to enter while carrying moisture and smoke safely away. Without that balance, heat would have become a danger rather than a solution. Their survival depended not only on creating warmth, but on controlling it. Life inside after dark. Here's the part most documentaries skip entirely. What happened inside these shelters after the sun went down? For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors went to bed at sunset and woke before dawn. But they didn't sleep the way you sleep. They slept in two phases, 4 hours, then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours, then 4 more hours until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This was the default human sleep pattern, documented in historical records across dozens of cultures and confirmed in a 1992 experiment by psychiatrist Thomas Weir, who found that when modern humans are removed from all artificial light for a month, every single participant automatically returns to the same two-phase pattern. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years studying the Juhuansi Bushmen of the Kalahari, one of the last groups on Earth still living close to the original human pattern. She found that nighttime conversation was categorically different from daytime conversation. During the day, 80% of talk was practical, logistics, hunting, resources. But at night, around the fire, 81% of conversation was stories. The campfire was the original theatre, the original classroom. The famous Venus figurines found at Paleolithic sites. Most were discovered in winter shelter contexts. The cave paintings associated with this period, many were created during the long months of winter confinement. The art that defined our species wasn't made in the warmth of summer. It was made by firelight in bone houses, while the steppe outside was locked in ice. Planners, not survivors. Perhaps the most revealing detail is that none of these achievements were improvised. Building a winter shelter required planning long before the first snow appeared. Construction demanded significant labour, coordination and time, meaning preparations had to begin months in advance. Archaeological evidence suggests that Ice Age communities carefully anticipated seasonal changes rather than simply reacting to them. They understood that survival in winter was determined by decisions made during warmer months. That same foresight extended to food storage. In regions dominated by permafrost, underground storage areas functioned as natural freezers, preserving valuable supplies through the harshest parts of the year. Even when blizzards made hunting impossible, families could access stored food without venturing far from shelter. Their clothing reflected the same level of sophistication. Different animal hides were combined in layers, each chosen for a specific purpose, from retaining heat to blocking wind and moisture. Nothing was left to chance. Most importantly, these shelters were constantly maintained. Repairs, replacements, and improvements continued throughout winter. Survival depended not on building once, but on managing an entire system day after day. Lost and rediscovered. Like all technologies, these systems eventually faded when they were no longer essential. As the Ice Age came to an end and climates gradually became warmer, many of the survival techniques that had protected humans for thousands of years were slowly abandoned. They were not lost in a disaster or forgotten overnight. They simply became unnecessary. Yet what is remarkable is how often modern researchers rediscover solutions that our ancestors had already mastered long ago. Today, scientists, engineers, and survival specialists studying ancient shelters continue to be impressed by their effectiveness. Techniques inspired by prehistoric designs have influenced modern cold weather survival training and emergency shelter construction. Again and again, the evidence points to the same conclusion. Ice Age humans understood their environment with a level of precision we rarely give them credit for. So the next time you adjust a thermostat or step into a heated room, consider what that comfort truly represents. Warmth was never something humanity received easily. It was earned through generations of observation, planning, experimentation, and relentless effort. The stories shared around modern dinner tables trace their roots back to conversations held beside ancient fires. The comfort you enjoy today is part of a legacy built by people who faced unimaginable cold and refused to surrender to it. Their greatest invention was not shelter or fire, it was persistence. Take a moment and think about the last time you complained about being cold. Maybe you turned up the heat, grabbed a blanket, or put on a jacket. Now imagine facing winter with none of those options. For hundreds of thousands of years, our ancestors lived in a world where a single freezing night could mean death. They had no furnaces, no insulated homes, and no modern technology to protect them from the cold. Yet somehow they survived some of the harshest climates on Earth. The methods they used were so ingenious that they may completely change how you think about human survival. To understand how remarkable Ice Age survival really was, you first need to understand the cold itself. Imagine temperatures plunging to -40 degrees Fahrenheit across vast stretches of the Eurasian steppe. This wasn't the kind of cold that makes you uncomfortable for a few minutes before you step back indoors. This was a force of nature capable of killing an unprepared person in a single night. Exposed skin could freeze within minutes. Every breath felt like inhaling knives. The wind swept endlessly across the open landscape, stripping away body heat with relentless efficiency. In conditions like these, even small mistakes could become fatal. Most people picture Ice Age humans as desperate survivors, huddled around weak fires and constantly battling the elements. It's an image that has appeared in books, movies, and popular culture for generations. But the archaeological evidence tells a far more surprising story. These people were not merely enduring the cold, in many ways, they were mastering it through remarkable ingenuity. They didn't live in caves. One of the biggest misconceptions about Ice Age humans is that they spent their lives hiding in caves. The reality was far more impressive. Archaeological discoveries suggest that many of our ancestors actively designed living spaces to protect themselves from extreme temperatures. Rather than battling the cold head-on, they learned how to use the environment itself as a shield. In some regions, people excavated deep circular dwellings below the surface, taking advantage of the Earth's natural insulation. Just a few feet underground, temperatures remained dramatically warmer